Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, whatever time it is. Video finds you, it's your boy Jay. And now that the Monster Hunter Wilds open beta test is behind us, historically, we get a demo or a second look at the game closer to launch that includes a buffed up version of the flagship. And the flagship in this case, we already know is Arkveld. Now, there are a sect of people in the Monster Hunter community who don't want to see Arkveld show up before the release of the game. They want to keep him mysterious. They want to keep him hidden away close to the chest so that the flagship of the game doesn't fall short when the actual game comes out, right? And that makes sense. That line of thinking does have some merit to me, right? Because, you know, we got the Magnum Malo in the Rise demo. By the time we actually saw Magnum Malo in the game, he's much easier because the flagship that we get in these demos or previews of the game is often much harder than the real thing. Same thing with Malzeno, same thing with Velkhana, same thing with Nergigante, right? They typically put the flagship in some sort of preview of the game close to the release, and they buff it up, and they have special conditions that make it harder to actually overcome the hunt. Then, when you get the full game, you get to the flagship and it's like, oh, this is easy. I already know all his moves. Fighting him in the demo was much harder than fighting him in the real game. And then you just go in there and you wipe the floor with him, and you kind of feel underwhelmed that the monster on the box is not that tough. I get it. I understand this line of thinking. That makes sense to me. However, would you be okay with Arkveld showing up in the demo if Arkveld pulls a Gore Magala? Jay, what do you mean by that? What are you talking about? Let me explain. So Gore Magala is on the box, is the flagship of Monster Hunter 4, right? But the thing about Gore Magala is he happened to be the final boss of that story, quote unquote. He happened to be the final boss of like the village story, in that the Gore Magala that you were fighting and encountering throughout the game grew up into a Shagaru Magala, which is something entirely different, right? Like you still got to overcome the frenzy, but the attacks patterns are different. Flash bombs work on Shagaru because it has grown eyes, versus traps don't work on Shagaru, but it does work on Gore Magala. So we kind of grew up and became something different entirely. What if Arkveld does that same kind of thing, right? Where, you know, Arkveld has been, I guess, trapped or chained down by Nata's people, which are the keepers from what I understand, and like the chains have something to do with what's going on with Arkveld. We really don't know that much about him. We've never actually seen him like in a hunt, right? Anytime we've seen him thus far, as of the making of this video, he's only been in cutscenes, and very few cutscenes at that. So what if Arkveld undergoes some sort of change in the middle of the story, and it seems like Arkveld is going to be picking fights with maybe all of the apexes of the entire map. I mean, we see him prominently fighting Rei Dao, and we also, I think it's Uthduna that he has wrapped up in the chains very briefly right here. And then also we have the Black Flame, which is named similarly to Arkveld's nickname, the White Wraith. So we'll see if there's any kind of interaction there. And then we suspect that there's like some sort of snow map, and maybe Arkveld will show up there too, interact with the apex there, and maybe similar to Thanos, after collecting all of the Infinity Stones, after interacting with all of the apexes, it does something, it undergoes some kind of growth, and maybe we have to fight an Arkveld Unchained, and it ends up being the final boss of the story. How does that sound? If that does occur, would you guys be okay with experiencing Arkveld in the demo? Because then it's not just this is the flagship and you'll be underwhelmed. It undergoes a metamorphosis throughout the story, and then you get to fight the head honcho new form, and you guys still get to be wowed by that. How does that sound as a proposition? Those of you who currently don't want to see Arkveld visit a demo of any kind before release, would such a fact change your mind about hunting the Arkveld in a demo, knowing, or maybe knowing, that there's some new form of it that we're still gonna fight? So it's still gonna have some sort of mystique attached to it. It's still gonna have a mystery attached to it, despite us hunting it over and over again in the demo. Sound off in the comments down below what you think of this possibility. If you would like to see that, let me know. I'll do my best to reply to all the comments that hit this video. While we're on the subject of flagships, something I experienced in the Monster Hunter Wilds open beta has really got me thinking about what Arkveld is gonna end up being like to actually hunt, right? Many flagships often showcase the new quote-unquote gimmick of the game, right? The Gaia Cruise with the underwater, we got Nergigante with the Elder Seal, you know, Velkana the Clutch Claw, Mount Zeno with the Blood Blight, you know. And so typically the flagship shows off, you know, what the game is about, what the new thing is about. And the new thing here is gonna be the focus strikes and the wound system, right? And having hunted a couple of Ray Dow, it really got me thinking, you know, after that big old laser attack he does where he opens up his face, and that's, you know, an opportunity for you to land a focus strike despite a wound not being there. I'm thinking that Arkveld, and every time we have seen it so far, it's kind of glowing, and I'm wondering if that's going to be an opportunity to land a focus strike of some kind, or maybe he's going to glow in certain parts of his body, and that's how you know, hey, you can hit a focus strike right then despite not being a wound. And I'm wondering if the amount of wounds or glowing parts that he has on his body is going to have some sort of correlation with the amount of strength that he has, right? So the player can be rewarded with being able to manage how many weak spots on Arkveld at one point in time. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you let him get too glowy or let him have too much power, he's gonna go into this state where he's gonna be harder to deal with. But if you are, you know, a master of the focus strike system, if you're a master of focus mode, you're not gonna let him build up his power as much, and you're gonna be using those focus strikes to take him down a peg. I'm wondering if that's going to be Arkveld's gimmick, right? Is using focus strikes to keep his power in check so that he doesn't get too powerful and too hard to deal with, or not. I don't know. There's still so much to be discovered about Arkveld, and I'm just really thinking about the flagship after having played the game, after having time with the game in my hands. I'm like, what does a flagship of this game play like? Like, how is it going to interact with some of these systems in the game to really, you know, highlight the gimmick of the game, to highlight what's new about this game? We've already kind of seen it in both of the maps that we've seen so far. Well, in two of the maps we've seen so far, I've forgotten. Oil Well, it just got released, just got shown off to us. But we've seen it in the forest, and we've seen it in the Windward Plains. So maybe we're gonna be chasing Arkveld all around the huge open world map to also show off that part, which is new to the Monster Hunter franchise, where like you can actually just go from one locale of the map to another seamlessly. Maybe we're going to be chasing it around as, like I said earlier, it's running around trying to pick a fight with all the apexes to maybe gather some sort of power off of each of them, much like how I said Thanos with the Infinity Stones before it finally really glows up, and then maybe it goes off somewhere and you got to square up for the final time, similar to Gore Magala in Monster Hunter 4. So that's going to be about it for today's video. After having played the Wilds open beta, it really got me thinking, how can Arkveld really show off what's different in Monster Hunter Wilds as the flagship of the game? He's the guy in the box. He's got to do something special. And having the game in my hands really got me thinking, okay, it could be this, it could be that. But hey, I'm making this video to open up a dialogue with you guys, so definitely head to the comments down below, sound off about what you're thinking about Arkveld. Maybe you don't want to see him at all. Let me know in the comments down below, man. I plan on replying to each and every comment in this video at least once. So yeah, as always, people, happy hunting. Peace.